It was good, Josh, man. The Bigga P, and I'm here to share my thoughts on last night's doubleheader that was on HBO. First, that was in first the first televised fight was Saddam Ali versus Luis Carlos Abregu, and then the main event, Bernard Hopkins versus Sergey Kovalev. Um, Overall, as a card, it was not spectacular by any sense, by any means. Um, I mean, it was passable. I mean, like I said, I mean, it could have been. I mean, I feel the card probably could have been better, but like I said, boxing overall in 2014 has not been the best. So I mean, you get what you get, and on paper, it did look like a slightly intriguing card, but it didn't really turn out that way. Um, so yeah, let me get into the first fight, Abregu versus Ali. Now, going into this fight, I was not completely sold on Ali. I mean, I know Ali's been around. I mean, I remember watching some of his earlier pro fights. I was thinking maybe the kid had a little something. Um, but I didn't think he was as active as what I thought as he would be. Because, like I said, he got the Olympics in 2008, and he's 6 years into is almost 6 years into his pro career, and he had yet to have anything of significant fight. That seemed to be a running. That seems to be like I won't say an issue, but a running theme with the 2008 U.S. Olympics. I don't understand it, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, regardless, going into that fight, I wasn't because in this last fight prior to Abreu, he looked incredibly shaky. And in pulling out or being gifted a win. So I was not very high on him going into this fight against someone like Abregu. Now Abregu, who has experience with at the high level and has played the role of the spoiler. I think earlier this year, I remember he pretty much he KO'd and took the zero of Thomas Delerme, and his only loss at the time was to Timothy Bradley. Actually, if I remember, that was the one fight that I didn't like watching. I think I remember I turned to watch Tua Barrett the first fight, which in hindsight was probably a great decision as as those two actually put on a great brawl. Why pretty much later on, I think the next day I watched Abregu and Bradley. But regardless, like I said, Abregu was the last. I mean, Abregu that was the only loss in his career, and pretty much like saying that fight, Bradley just outworked him as he usually does. I think that was Bradley's first fight at welter too. So yeah, so at that time so pretty much off that I was like, okay, Brago will probably be the one to actually take Ali zero. The fight itself was not very in the first maybe 4 or 5 rounds was not very was not it was not easy to watch, and it wasn't entertaining at all. Mostly because Ali was sticking to a game plan, a very solid game. I mean, boxing. Boxing is to hit and to not get hit, but it is. But you know how it goes. Probably with a restless crowd. From what I understand, the fights before that were not the greatest. They probably wanted to see some actual action, and Abregu wasn't really cutting off the ring as much or throwing enough punches to even bother Ali because Ali's movement was giving him all types of problems. However, though, I mean, all that movement paid dividends when Ali, I think for a little later on, actually caught Abregu with a beautiful counter that dropped him. Now, I didn't think that was even going to happen. I didn't even think Ali had even that type of power to drop someone like Abregu, but I was surprised. And over and then pretty much for the rest of the fight, I mean, once Abregu got a little flustered, knowing that he was down on the card, he started opening himself up, and he was just walking the counter after counter after counter. And in the round that the fight was stopped in, I was thinking because Ali had shown a tendency to actually gas out. Usually by the seventh or eighth round, he'll start gassing out, and he was starting. So Sean said, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe this will be Abregu's chance to actually get into the fight. But he walked into another counter, and down he went. And I'm over this myself. It's like, man, Ali's actually beating up Abregu a lot thoroughly than Tim Bradley did. So he got up, And this is where I had issue. Now Ali, however, was starting to tee off, but Abregu was still throwing, and the referee stopped it as Abregu was still throwing. Now this is where I say, okay, this is probably a bad stoppage, and this probably the referee should have never stopped at this point. He should have at least waited until Abregu at least hit the canvas, at least, or dropped his hands, or was wobbling over the place. You should give him at least give him the benefit of the doubt. So I mean, I thought the stoppage itself was very early, but still, nonetheless, my respect. My hats off to Ali. I mean, he proved me wrong. I mean, I honestly didn't think he would actually do what he did. He stuck to a solid. He boxed him. He hurt him. He went for the kill and stopped him. I didn't see that coming at all. So my hats off to him. The only thing with this one now for Abregu is now because he was getting a lot of hype. Like he was the #1 contender, #2 contender, or whatever they're talking about. And Ali just pretty much ran through him. So Abregu at this point, I mean, he's not a career opponent. I mean, it's a setback. So it'll be a second loss. So I'm pretty sure he has to go back to the drawing board, and I'm pretty sure he'll get another shot at another. He'll get another significant fight in the future. But yeah, Ali proved me incredibly long. I mean, although he's still gassed a little bit. I'm not gonna forget that he's still gassed a little bit in the fight. But that was he boxed absolutely solid. So I can't take anything away from him. And most likely most likely he probably just definitely earned himself another significant fight on HBO in the very near future. So now we go on to the main event. Is Bernard Hopkins, who holds the WBA super light heavyweight title, these titles, and the IBF light heavyweight title, versus Sergey Kovalev, who's the holder of the WBO light heavyweight title. Now going into this fight, there were just a lot of intangibles. Like no one really knew what was gonna happen because B-Hop is one of boxing's premier technicians, solid technicians, and also a little bit of a dirty fighter. So, and even at being almost 50 years old, he had pretty much shown abilities to outthink and outbox and even hurt fighters younger than him. As in last fight with Shumanev, he dropped him, and then he pretty much outboxed Tavares Cloud with ease. So you're thinking to yourself, now could he actually do the same thing to a Kovalev? Now Kovalev at the time, Kovalev had never been past 8 rounds before. Although pretty much all but maybe about 2 of his fights have ended, have ended within the actual distance of a fight. And I mean, there were a lot. I mean, although yes, one thing is, Kovalev could punch. It could also he also had maybe there was also maybe reports that he has a shaky chin because in his last fight he was dropped by a complete. He was dropped surprisingly in the first round before ending matters in the second round with a body shot. And there was also stamina because in the fight, even before the Agnew fight, he threw everything but the kitchen sink at him and was getting to the point where he was absolutely winded by the 7th round. And if Agnew didn't absorb as much punishment as he did, and actually fought a little smart, he probably would have that probably would have been an upset in that fight. So there's just a lot of issues that were going, what was going on. Like pretty much what it would just be age and power, or it would be age and brains, or age versus power. And it turned out to be pretty much that Kovalev, can actually box, and actually has something of a boxing IQ, because I wouldn't say it hurt to see B-Hop just catch the beating that he did. But I didn't like watching it. I mean, I already knew we were in for something when B-Hop went down in round 1 from a quick counter. I mean, talk about a quick right hand counter as soon as he was coming off the quarter. Because I think B-Hop tried maybe he thought he was a little slower than pretty much he was like a Kelly Pavlik, and Kovalev come with the absolute swift counter right hand that put him on his ass. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, we're in a fight now. And then pretty much once B-Hop tasted that power, he went to full defense mode. I mean, it wasn't even. I mean, it be. I mean, I knew. I knew that B Hop was probably hurt off that shot, but I didn't realize he was that hurt off that shot. So, watching him just go on the ropes, going in and out the shell, ducking, going at the ducking below the waist, doing all types of stuff like that. I mean, because pretty much why, because he was mounting absolutely no offense. His offense, because he was under so much pressure, he couldn't open himself up. And when he did open himself up, Kovalev was landing hard. I mean, there were several rounds where near the end of the rounds, Kovalev was just teeing off on him, and then there was one round where he lands an absolute cork over right hand, and I don't even know how. I mean, it was right hand that usually when I see Kovalev landed, fighters go down, and B-Hop buckled one of his legs really buckled to the point where he almost hit the canvas and straightened himself back up. And B-Hop's chin is still among one of the tops in the sport because, like I said, he should have actually went down from that shot. Um, and then later on in the fight, as we got to more from foreign territory for Kovalev, because this is the first time he actually went past 8. B-Hop actually was able to land a couple pashas, a couple right hands that were actually buckling Kovalev, which is interesting. Punches on the neck and then punches on the chin. Yeah, I mean, I think there's one right where Kovalev did a little dance after a right hand on the inside. And you're thinking, okay, B-Hop could actually knock him out. In the 12th round, that's what B-Hop tried to do. He wobbled him again, and he tried to go all out. But the problem was B-Hop stuck out his tongue again, and Kovalev just said, you know what? He just threw caution. He said, fuck it. And then to my disgust and dismay, Kovalev started teeing off on B-Hop. I mean, B-Hop is not the type of guy to take sustained punishment over a fight like that, and it was good to play. It was good to play. Like he was getting his head snapped back and everything. I'm thinking to myself, okay, ref, please, be ready to stop it to stop the fight, because Kovalev in the last half minute or so was just absolutely just brutalizing him, to the point where I was like, okay, this is really bad. So yeah, that's what it was. I mean, it was an easy. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was a one-sided 120-107 victory. And 106, I'm pretty sure the judge who scored at 120-106 was probably looking at that 12th round as yeah, that's a 10-8 round right there. And I wouldn't even blame them if the judges actually scored it that way, even though there was no official knockdown. So yeah, Sergey Kovalev is the new, holds 3 of the 4 light heavyweight title belts. And he moves on to faces. I don't know, either maybe Stevenson or no, probably Pascal if he wins, or I mean, the logical fight and the fight that most fans would want to see would be against Adonis Stevenson. But since Adonis went over to Showtime, who even knows how feasible that fight can actually be at this point? And it's a shame because that's a marquee. That's a marquee fight. That's almost pay-per-view worthy, almost. Yeah, but my hat's off to him. Like I said, Sergey Kovalev answered a lot of questions on him. People thought he was just maybe all hyper, all power, but he answered a lot of questions on his ability. As for B-Hop, I didn't like watching what I was watching. No offense, the defense, and he was strictly defense, and it was defensive shit that actually kept him up in the 12 from not getting knocked out, because it was on point. But he still caught too much of a beating for my liking, and I would like to see B-Hop stop here, because I think that fight put a little bit put some mileage on his 49-year-old body, because he's not getting any younger, and he's entering now the territory where if he fights someone who's a little bit more athletic or faster, I mean, it can get ugly. I mean, even then, like B-Hop, he had the trademarks around his eyes, and it looked like his nose was broken. These are things I don't usually see with B-Hop at all. So I know they said in an interview that that he was maybe 50-50 on actually fighting again, or he might fight again, and I hope he doesn't. And on a random note, since I just thought about this, Roy Jones commentary makes me laugh, and the one comment that made me like almost spit out my beer was the fact that he referred to B Hop as an old slick coon. And now, I mean, granted, I mean, coon in more recent times has been used in usually more in its derogatory form. But seeing Roy actually call him that on the HBO broadcast, I mean, I'm thinking to myself. I mean, I thought I was hearing things. I don't know if I was hearing the right thing until I went onto YouTube and I ran that because someone had that video up like that, and I watched it again. I'm like, yeah, that's what he said. Roy has no filter whatsoever. That was just a random thing I had to comment on because I was like, I wonder how that's actually gonna go over, or if they're even gonna address that. That another black man calls another black man a coon, and it wasn't derogatory. It was just just because Roy's just country is all hell. It is what it is. But yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the doubleheader. So right now it's almost 7, and I got to do some morning errands and whatnot. I know I probably won't watch this fight anytime soon, but that's why I'm up so early doing this video. So till next time, peace.